from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Bailey's Hair and Nail Salon in Wayne, Nebraska is one of those salons who decided to open once restrictions were lifted.
Everything's just kind of different. We're just kind of playing it by ear and trying to get everything clean in between everybody. We have to do that anyway, but it seems like a little extra Lysol and barbicide and trying to keep everything clean and everybody safe.
Bailey says she still has concerns with reopening, but says they are making sure they do everything possible to keep the staff and customers safe.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 11th edition of a special weekly series on Consider This, COVID-19. Today's focus, new guidelines for salons. We welcome two guests today. The first is Darcy Mahalik. She joins us via Zoom. Darcy is the owner of Garbo's Salon in Omaha. The other is Lindsay Balkovec. Lindsay is a stylist at Garbo's, working at its Village Point location. Thank you both so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you.
Darcy, I want to start with you. How do you describe the salon industry?
The salon industry has always been an industry that's about taking really good care of our clients. And as an owner, certainly taking very good care of our staff. We really want to help health and wellness and help people feel better about themselves. In our business, we always feel great about the fact that people leave better than they came. And that gives us great satisfaction. The industry has evolved greatly over the last 13 years that I've been in it. Certainly when I started in the business and bought my first location, large commission salons were really the focus of the business, and slowly but surely the industry has moved to something more of a blend with the suite and the booth rentals, which has given staff more opportunity for independence. And so as a large organization, we have had to evolve with that change. And I feel like we have worked really hard to be able to allow independence, to allow flexibility, but at the same time to be able to maintain the brand across all of our locations. We've seen a lot of emphasis on deregulation, which we find concerning because we feel very strongly about keeping our industry regulated so that we can make sure that we can keep our staff safe and our clients safe. And I think that holds true certainly louder than ever before in this particular time. Having that amount of control and being able to control the environment and being able to know that people are properly educated about that and communicated, I think that's very, very important. And so deregulation has certainly been something that's been in the climate. We've worked very hard to be a diverse organization in the city, being located in multiple areas of the city, serving a very diverse clientele. And at the same time, we really want to be proactive in that as well, and making sure that we are doing everything that we possibly can to be as welcoming as we can on the client side and on the staff side. So we've evolved like all businesses have, and we've made major changes. Social media has had a major impact on our business. The way we marketed our business 13 years ago and the way we market our business today are completely different. And we're thrilled by it. And at the same time, it's a pace with which we've had to adapt very quickly. Right now, I feel like we have an internal team that's helped us to do that. But those are the major changes I would say that I've seen over the last 13 years, and just really trying to evolve a great big organization and allowing it to still have that maneuverability and flexibility and freedom that the staff needs and wants, but maintaining the brand.
Yeah, so high level, talk about customer loyalty and how that plays into your success.
Customer loyalty is very important to us. 65% of all of our clients are return clients. So maintaining that level of experience, whether you're visiting our Village Point location or our Midtown location, making sure that people can experience that from the beginning to the end is very important to us. That one-on-one client relationship becomes super important, and Lindsay can even speak to that. Our clients, we've seen them for years and years and years. I mean, I will visit a salon and be introduced to someone who's perhaps been seeing us for 19 years. And so that client loyalty is very, very important, but we never want to take them for granted. We never want them to be disappointed. And if they are, we want to make sure that we put our best foot forward and we try and make it right. But they are the root of our business. Obviously, we are always really loving when we get new clientele. And when we get a new client, we want to treat them like a loyal client and keep them. And but those loyal clients, the people that keep coming back time and time again, the people that reached out to us while we were closed, those are the people that just mean the world to us too. And we're so thankful for their loyalty and their generosity, not only through the COVID time, but just through the last 13 years and the last 30 years that Garbo's has been in existence.
Yeah. So how were you introduced to this industry, Darcy?
I spent about 14 years in the fashion jewelry industry and traveled around the country and did most of my time in sales and marketing and loved the fashion jewelry industry. We lived in Phoenix, we lived in San Antonio. My last location was on the East Coast. I actually worked in our New York office for the last 3 years. And my husband and I have 3 children, and all of our family was in Nebraska. So we made a decision to really start to look for careers that were back in the Midwest, closer to our family, because we'd spend every vacation driving 30 hours to be able to see family. And we wanted our kids to be able to spend time with their grandparents. So we got into a wholesale hardware business and ran that for a few years. And then in the meantime, started to look for businesses to buy, because I come from a family business, and I always thought that I wanted to be an independent business owner, and had the opportunity just through networking to be introduced to the first Garbo's location that I purchased, and that was Oakview, and that was in late 2006. And then beyond that, we had the opportunity to purchase the Village Point location just 2 years later, which we did. We opened up our Midtown Crossing location on our own about 8 years ago. And then almost 5 years ago, we purchased the Regency location, and along with that, we purchased the brand. Oh. And actually on June 1st, we opened up our 5th location in La Vista. So it's been quite an interesting ride, and I've learned a lot about the industry. But I don't come from the industry. However, I come from the fashion industry, and I love fashion, and I love how fast it all moves and evolves. And so I think this fits really well. And I love being in a serving capacity. I love being in an environment and in a company that is about serving others. And I think there is no greater way for us to be able to do that than to take good care of each one of our clients. So that's kind of how I evolved into the business.
Yeah, and who would have thought that something like COVID-19 would have come down the pike? From an owner's standpoint, you're watching the news like everybody else, Darcy. When did you know, at what point was this going to be a game changer?
A good friend of mine lived in Washington State and was actually visiting when things were just starting to change. And we were having conversations about just things that she was seeing happening in her community. And nothing had been shut down yet, but there were certainly starting to have conversations about that. But for me, when I knew that we were going to have a game changer is when social distancing started to be part of every single sentence and conversation that people were having. And social distancing meant 6 feet apart. And I know our business well enough to know that it is very, very difficult to do hair 6 feet apart from anybody. So when that started to be a conversation, I knew that we were going to have an unprecedented time of protecting our staff and protecting our clients. As businesses started to close across the country, we watched that. We were mindful of it. We became hyper vigilant about everything we were doing in the salon, making sure that we were doing everything that we'd already done and then adding on top of it. But it certainly was a wave. You could feel it. And as an owner, it was a daily wave. March 1st looked so much different than March 20th. Every single day, things were really radically changing for us. And we spent a lot of time, I personally spent a lot of time on the phone with the Douglas County Health Department, who I can't say enough about. They have just been the greatest resource to me. I know most of them by first name, but it has just, it was one of those things where you could feel it coming. You couldn't believe it was going to happen. But logically, when you start talking about social distancing and what was happening, we knew that we were going to be impacted on a major, major level.
Yeah, and so we had that downtime, and you've already talked a little bit about how you were reaching out to folks. Anything else that would be important to note from an owner's standpoint in terms of what you were doing during the time that those doors were closed?
I had never done much of anything like we're doing today, Zoom and, live Facebook events and things like that. But we really felt it was important that I get in front of my staff and get in front of them as much as I possibly could. So we started scheduling weekly live events. And I would just try and give them an update of everything that I knew that was changing. Because when we first closed on March 20th, our anticipation and our hope was that we would just be closed for 2 weeks. But obviously, the directed health measures that came out after that made that very apparent that that was not going to happen. And then we would be closed for the entire month of April. And we just wanted to stay connected. We wanted to make sure everyone was okay. So every Friday, anywhere between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, we moved our time later because we were waiting for any updates that would come on the television from the governor or from the health department. And then we would give any updates that we had. But there were many times that I just didn't know what I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I would even share that. I just shared with them, that I cared about them, that I was here for them. I had resources for them to help them through and navigate unemployment and any other questions or concerns that they had. They would list questions off to me as we were doing a live event, and I would try to answer them to the best of my ability. And some of them I just didn't have an answer for, but just to be able to stay connected. And then on top of that, I spent some time making personal phone calls, just checking in with people, seeing how people were doing, how are they feeling, how was their family staying safe. And we were so blessed because our entire Garbos family stayed very healthy throughout the entire process. And many of them really embraced that time to spend more time with their kids, to do some remodeling. They really were hanging in there very, very strongly, but at the same time had a very, very strong desire to come back to work and be able to take care of their clients, because their clients were really desperate to see them as well. Yeah. I spent time fulfilling online orders and making sure that we could still support our stylists through our online orders. So my dining room looked like pick, pack, and ship for a while. And just staying connected. I think those personal phone calls, that made a big difference for me and for them, just to know that everybody was doing well and staying safe throughout the process.
Let's briefly walk through, it was imperative that folks have a plan to reopen, right? They had steps to take them toward that, and the people to execute it and those to enforce it. So from an owner standpoint, especially with multiple locations, talk about those days leading up to opening and what it was that you were doing, working on to make sure that you were not only complying, you had folks who were executing, and then folks who could follow up and enforce.
I said in the very beginning when we started to try and reopen, I was so surprised that I thought closing was the hardest thing I ever had to do, and actually opening became even harder. Making sure that all of the directives that we put out there were correct and consistent, figuring out how we were going to be able to make sure that clients just didn't walk in the door without a mask on, or walk in the door and think that they could book an appointment, because we had that very strict 10-person limit in the very beginning. So if you would walk up to our salons, even today, you would see huge signs on the door and asking people to be able to wait outside and to read the directive, understanding what it is that we needed them to do to help them stay safe and to help us stay safe and stay compliant. So reworking all of that communication for our clients, making sure that the website was very clear on what it was going to take for a client to be able to come into the salon so that they weren't surprised or frustrated. Because we have always in the past been able to take walk-in clients, and in this particular case, we were not able to do that. We were by appointment only. At the same time, we were not able to take walk-in retail, so we had to be able to be communicating that in order for our clients to understand that, just because of that very strict 10-person rule that we took very, very seriously. And then we had to start to prepare our staff. We had an entire list of things that our staff had to understand. There's a 3-page document that's a guideline document that we made every single staff member read and attest to and actually sign as a commitment that they were going to be committed to making sure that they did every single thing on the list every single time with every single guest, no exceptions. And we did that through a series of what we called our phase 1 rehire conference calls. And each one of those conference calls then were followed up by an in-salon time that they had in order to be able to come back into the salon get reacquainted with their environment, set up everything, because when we closed, I did ask them to take everything home with them. So that, because we had no idea how long that was going to last. And so they had a chance to be able to kind of get reacquainted with that phase 1 team that was starting. And really it was all about communication and systems, and making sure that our systems were sound, and making sure that our processes were sound, making sure that we weren't too cumbersome on what we were trying to do, but at the same time that we were overly compliant. Yeah. We took all of the guidelines and then we ramped them up a little bit. And we just wanted to make sure that we were doing everything that we possibly could to keep them safe and to keep the client safe. Because in the very beginning, people were very nervous about this, but I felt like we were allowed to open on May 4th. And because the health department felt it was okay that we could open on May 4th, and the governor felt it was okay that we could open on May 4th, I really wanted to be out there, and I wanted to do that, and I wanted to do it in the safest way possible, because I knew we had so many clients that were desperate for our services. And the clients that were concerned, certainly, we didn't see them right away, and some we have not seen yet. And we certainly can appreciate all of that. But I think the most important thing that I was working on that first week was really about communication and retraining of all of our protocols and our processes from the beginning of the service to the end of the service, each and every time, making sure that our stylists understood that they had to be every other station, making sure that they were 6 feet apart. We're blessed because the majority of our salons, our stations are 6 feet apart, but we do have our biggest salon where our stations are not 6 feet apart. So then we had to go through a whole new mapping scenario of who can go where in order to make sure that we can maintain that social distancing, which obviously is very important for us to be able to stay healthy and to stay safe. So just communicate. As I always say, tell the story, and then tell the story again.
Yeah, Lindsay is here in the studio just nodding as you are talking about all of this. You're in the throes of everything here, Lindsay. If I asked you to sum these times up in one word, what would it be and why?
It would have to be unpredictable. And obviously, for exactly what she just said, each and every day changes. Who would have thought? But unpredictable would be the best word for me.
Well, and that's a pretty big word, because you've been in this industry for like a couple of decades.
Absolutely.
Now, right? Had you seen or experienced anything quite like this?
Absolutely not. Nothing at all. And for me, it was very hard. It was a very hard time for all of us, because we are so loyal and dedicated to our clients and take pride in where we work and have confidence in what we were doing, to keep ourselves and everyone else safe. So I've never seen anything like that. Hopefully we won't see it again.
Wow, and I understand this has been a part of your life,
Absolutely.
Hairstyle, for a long time. Why did you get into this industry? When were you first drawn in?
Well, it's funny. I stepped into a salon. I turned 15 working in a salon. I was a gymnast here in Omaha, and a lady that always chaperoned us when we traveled owned a salon that my mom went to, and I was kind of the gymnast that had the hair falling out of the braid and did everyone's hair and makeup when we traveled, and it was just something I feel the industry chose me. That's always, most hairstylists will say, toys were off to the side. We were playing with hair and makeup, and so she noticed that as well, the owner, and offered me a job there. At a young age, times were different then. So answering phones, helping book appointments, keeping the salon clean, and just everything, part of it all, and which really was a paid internship for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this had to be really challenging for you to be away from what it is that you love so much, not to mention those clients.
Absolutely.
Right? That are so important to you. What did you do during your time away?
The best way I could say it was just focusing on all the silver linings. Again, I had so many clients reach out, which meant the world to me, and I kind of laugh. The reason why I'm smiling is because I know it wasn't they were worried financially for me. It was, how are you doing? You never take work off. I am always there. Being 37 years old, I still work 6 days a week to 5 days a week, and I love what I do. So just staying focused on staying busy, you know, anything, like she said, we did home projects to just seeing my family more. The video chatting was fun, but just doing everything you can, just hoping that this will all pass, you know.
Yeah. What was it like then to come back?
I remember the first day I walked in and I looked back at Darcy. I was talking to her and I like couldn't talk. I just started to cry. I mean, it's like someone telling you you can't go home for 7 weeks, you know. So it was everything. I knew I'd be first in line to come back. So
Well, we put up the salon guidelines earlier, but we're going to put up the client guidelines right now. And if you could walk us through those, just so that folks who kind of have been waiting to see know and understand. So let's walk us through those, if you would.
So the one thing I would like to say is, you know, when you first read any of these rules, it can be overwhelming, but it really has flowed very smoothly. And that is, when you walk up to our salon, you know, reach out, put your mask on. Our front desk girl or us as stylists will come and greet you. You know, because of capacity and the strict guidelines of how many we can allow, we ask people to not bring, you know, family and extra people with them. We have the girl meet you and take your temperature. We document it and we'll have you read over the questions and sign. That pen that you use gets sanitized. So everything I always laugh, look and touch is sanitized after. And then you wait either outside. If there is, you know, a time where we're under capacity, you could wait inside until us as a stylist is ready for you. And then you walk back. Walk back, and that's when the good conversations and getting your hair done.
Yeah.
Finally.
What has the reaction been from your clients in terms of what you just showed us?
You know, honestly, everyone is just, they're impressed with how wonderful we're doing everything. I'm confident that there's nothing we could do better. I mean, and that makes them feel good and feel safe. And of course, I mean, after they get their hair done, I mean, there's tears, there's just a reaction that, you know, it's grooming, you know, to some people. It's very humbling to have your hair grown out or your true color shining bright. So it really is, like I said, I almost became obsessed the first 2 weeks because it was so good to see people feel so good and have a little normalcy in their life at that moment. So
yeah, and
it
I
was
think,
very awesome.
And as viewers are watching, I think it's just as important to stress what the staff are having to go through, because I think we hear in a lot of places the protocol leaving people wondering, okay, but what about the staff? Does that include them? So what happens when you go into work every day? Your temperature taken as well?
Absolutely, same thing. Right at the door, I have my mask on. They greet me. They take my temperature. We document it, and again, I go. My station's already sanitized, but we spray it down after each and every person that comes and sits down. We have a new cape on every client. When we take you back to shampoo, again, we sanitize the bowl, the chair, the floor. So, I mean, everything that, again, you touch is sanitized. So, but yeah, I mean, us wearing a mask has been probably one of the biggest challenges. Talking to people and even getting to know someone that I might not know for the first time with a mask on has been quite the challenge. So
I did want to ask you about that, because we kind of smile when you say that, but I can't even imagine your industry especially. People go in and they want to come out looking better than they did when they walked in. And so not only are you not able to see their face, but you don't even know if they're smiling. You're not even sure what they're thinking about what you're doing there.
I laugh because we have a whole new language now. It's, you know, like air hugs and elbows and kisses, you know, like we have a whole new language through all this, but you can tell when someone's smiling. That's one thing you've learned to really pay attention to eyebrows and eyes, you know, so. Yeah. But yeah, it is difficult, it is. And even just where hair lies, you know, certain facial features, we want to see that hair drape across your chin, and so it's a challenge. I think that's one of the biggest challenges many hairstylists would agree on coming back.
And I'm going to ask this of Darcy as well, but I do want to ask you, there's a lesson to be learned in everything, you know, that we go through. What has been the greatest lesson during COVID-19 from where you sit as a professional hairstylist?
The greatest lesson. Again, I mean, be prepared. You never know if something's going to happen and you have to take work off. So always be prepared and, keep those that you love close and reaching out, like Darcy said, has been a huge thing. Calling my clients, them calling me, just staying connected with people is so important.
Okay, thank you. And Darcy, I do want to ask the same question of you. Greatest lesson as an owner throughout this whole COVID-19 experience?
It's a lot of what Lindsay said. For me, it was really about just ramping up that personal connection even more than what I've done. Our organization is large, but yet that personal connection means so much. Those personal phone calls that I was making, checking in on people, just staying connected. And that's one of the things that I'm going to take with me now that we are open and we're busy again and we're a large organization, is I'm going to continue to try and work very hard to be able to stay even more personally connected to my staff.
Darcy, I want to ask you, final thoughts. We have about a minute remaining. What would be important for folks to walk away from this interview? If they remember nothing else, what do they need to remember from this interview?
I think that what I learned through this entire process was, well, and the way I told people how I was making it was, I had a lot of faith, and I gave all of the worry and the stress to God. And I worked hard every single day in order to make sure that we were going to have a place to come back to, really keeping my eye on what Lindsay said, the silver linings, all of the blessings that we had been given. I learned so much about the generosity of people that I had taken for granted. And the people that came and helped us through all of it, it was really meaningful.
Well, thank you very much. I want to put up a graphic for folks who want more information about today's program. You are more than welcome to get a hold of the Department of Health and Human Services. COVID information line is 833-998-2275. That website, dhhs.ne.gov. I want to thank Darcy and Lindsay for being here today, for sharing your time, your expertise, and your stories. You're very inspirational and motivational and all the rest. And we want to wish you the very best as we journey through this COVID-19.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.